I will get back to you.
Sorry, what was your name again? One more time.
Oh, Erica.
Erica. Yeah,
Yeah.
Erica, I completely understand. And thank you for telling me, for being upfront with me. I have to imagine that this is a big decision for you, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yes.
before I go, I wanted to go over the three decisions a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market, in hopes by doing so is going to help you make the decision for as to what's best for you and your family. Does that sound fair?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So the first decision a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market is whether you even want to sell the property. And I see this because sometimes I sit down with sellers, and when they look at realistically what how much a home has sold in their neighborhood, it's not really within their expectation, or sometimes it doesn't make sense from a net perspective to make the move happen. So in those kind of cases, what they do is they usually keep the house, or they just end up renting out the house. Is that a serious consideration or option for you?
Mm. Uh, I want to rent. I
So
want to
you
rent
have,
out the house.
okay. Okay, so you do have the possibility of renting the house out instead of selling the
Yeah.
property. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes. Correct.
Okay, so we can definitely go over those options. We can look at what's actually have rented out in your neighborhood that's similar to yours. So
Mhm.
just to be clear, you're not looking, are you 100% confirmed in renting the house, or are you still looking to sell as well?
If price good,
So if the
I like
price,
is the price good, then I still want to sell.
okay, understood, understood. So if the price is good, you're looking to sell. If not, you
Yeah.
still want to keep the option of renting it out. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. It is correct.
Okay. So if we come up with a way where we can put on the market for both rent and selling the property, would that be something you'd be open to?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So if you got the right price, you would definitely sell the property, correct?
Yes. Right.
Okay. So let's put a check there. Well, the second decision a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market is actually the price, right? And earlier we sat down and looked at a couple of the properties of what's actually on the market and not selling. And we also looked at homes that actually sold based on what buyers and sellers have most recently agreed upon. Based on that information, we came up to an agreement that your house would be somewhere in the range of 1 million to about 1,050,000.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you can get
Yeah.
that price in those range, is that something that you'd be open to in selling it?
Eh, yes. Yes.
Okay, so if you got an offer right now at 1 million, somewhere in between 1 million and 1,050,000, you would
Mm-hmm.
definitely sell the house, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
Okay, so let's put a check on the price. So now the third decision a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market is who's going to help you sell the home. And you strike me to be someone very straightforward, and I'm the same way. So I'm going to ask you very directly. So the conversation we had over the phone initially, based on the conversation, based on the track record that you've seen online, the reviews and feedbacks, and based on the conversation that we had today, do you feel absolutely comfortable and confident that not only I'll be able to sell your home, but I'll be looking after your best interest?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know what the good news is?
Yes.
So you just made the three decision a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market. Can I
Mhm.
make a suggestion?
Yes. Go
Let's
ahead. Yeah.
yeah, let's do this. I mean, I'm here, you're here, I have all the appropriate paperwork. And as you mentioned before, you wanted to go the rent option as well. So we can
Mhm.
put in the market for sale, put in the market
Mhm.
for rent, and obviously if you get the right price, we'll sell the property. Does that sound good?
Yes. Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rose.
Awesome.
Mm.
Was that realistic, Roji?
Rose.
Uh, uh, kind of, but I feel like the rent option would have came up. I mean, I would have known the rent option
Right.
on the
From the
pre-qual.
prequel. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just had to go there. I mean, I had to kind of play with it, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I think it was pretty realistic.
Yeah, I would say your transition phrases are a lot smoother, which led you to the next question seamlessly. And it just sounded really, really good all the way through. So, I mean, she wasn't being super hard on you. So,
Yeah.
but great job. Great job. Jose, what did you hear from that? You came in a little bit
So
after,
I
but
think what you guys were working on is that I need to think about it, right?
correct. Yes.
Got it. Yeah. So whenever I think about the I need to think about it, it's basically like the way I would think about it is just, okay, more than likely they're not going to share with me what they need to think about. In some cases they will, but in most cases, for whatever reason, they're not open to sharing. So it's up to me to figure it out. So I think it just depends on the combination of the prequel and being there at the appointment. A lot of times we'll know what it is that they need to think about. A lot of times it's price or commission. But I think going through that process, the way I would think about it is not as a script. I would think about it as a process of trying to figure out, okay, like what's really holding up these individuals, and can I solve whatever it is that they're looking to do. So in this case, I don't really know. I think that what was holding her up is that she was thinking about renting or selling, which I think that you came up with a great solution, which is, hey, like what if we can do both? I may even, like, if that was the time that it came up, I may say, great. So it sounds like you're really not sure about renting or selling it. I'm going to make a note of this. Let's revisit this because I want to make sure that we're both on the same page about this. And then I would move on to the next question, be like, okay, great. The next thing is about price. And then the next thing is, have you already decided? Okay, so when you say you're thinking about renting, and then you're like, okay, great. Let me ask you this, like if we can come to some sort of agreement or we can come up with some sort of solution about the renting versus selling it, is there anything else that we would need to talk about? No, there isn't. Okay, great. When you say that you're thinking about renting it, like tell me what you mean by that. And then I think just kind of digging through it as well too. So like a lot of times when somebody is thinking about renting or selling it, I dig deeper on that. So what I mean by that is I'll set it aside at the very beginning and then I'll dig deeper. What I mean by that is, okay, great. If you did decide to rent it out, how much do you think we could actually rent it out for? And then they might be like, okay, well, we might be able to rent it out for 4,000. Okay, great. And then if you don't mind me asking, like, what is your monthly payment, including taxes, insurance, and HOA on this property? And they might be like, well, it's $4,500 a month. So let me ask you this. If it's $4,000 that they're collecting in rent and 4,500, is it probable that they're probably going to go in that direction? Probably not. So you're able to isolate it and be able to be like, okay, is this like, what are the probabilities of her actually following through on this? So you're able to dig deeper. Now, like, let's say it's $2,000 a month and the more rent is 4,000. Let's say their total monthly obligations, and they could make $2,000 in positive cash flow. I may ask, like, okay, what would be the benefit of, if you don't mind me asking, like, what would be the benefit of renting it versus selling it? Well, blah, 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 blah. Okay, what would be the benefit of selling it versus renting it? Well, if I sold it, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on maybe like California, like, what are your thoughts on California as a landlord-friendly state? Well, I'm not happy about that. Okay. Do you have any what are your concerns about renting the property versus selling it? Well, my concern is that the tenant won't stop paying. Okay, great. What would you do with the proceeds if you did sell it? Well, I'd probably put it in the bank. That's part of the problem. I really don't have a place to put the money in. Then it just comes down to like digging deeper, being like, okay, is this a primary? Has this always been a primary? Has this always been an investment? So depending on that, you can come up with solutions that could benefit them. You can go into the if it's a rental, you can go into Delaware statutory trust. If it's a primary, you can go into like, hey, look, if you sell now, like you may not have to pay any capital gains because you're exempt X amount of dollars. You could ask them as well too, like, what are your thoughts? Like, have you ever been a landlord before? What is your experience in being a landlord? So I think it's setting it aside and then just digging deeper. And then at the end of that, if renting it, if putting it up for rent and for sale is an option, then proposing that, but you may be able to kind of like weed through it and actually be like, oh, like it doesn't make any sense. In some cases too, like we have people that ask us for our advice and they're like, well, Jose, I really don't know if I should be renting it or selling it. And then, and it's funny, I came up with this, or let me ask you this. So let's say somebody makes $500 of positive cash flow a month. Is that good or is that bad?
It's good.
Really? You sure about that?
That's positive cash flow.
What does it depend on it? What does it depend on if it's good or bad?
How much money it took you to get that investment?
No.
What your down payment is?
No.
Return on investment. You've said this before. Like how much?
Yeah.
Return on equity.
Return on equity. Yes. Yes. Return on equity. Not
Can
how much you
invest your
invested.
money into something else and get more of a return?
Yeah. So what I mean by that is like, and I ask people this at times. I'll be like, "Hey, is $500 good or bad?" And it's really a trick question because a lot of people that don't think about it from an investment standpoint, they'll say it's good. What it really depends on in how much equity you have. So like, let's say you have $1 million in equity, and you're earning $500 in positive cash flow. Is that good or bad?
Bad.
Bad, right? Let's say you have $50,000 in equity and you're earning $500 in cash flow. Is that good or bad?
That's good.
So sometimes we'll walk people through this exercise and we'll calculate the return on equity. Now, the reason we calculate with them the return on equity, it tells them what an alternative investment what their alternatives is. So like, let's say that they make $500 a month. This is the way you calculate the return on equity. You're like, okay, $500 a month, positive times 12, that's $6,000 positive a year. And then you divide it by how much equity they have. So like, let's say they have $100,000 in equity. You divide $6,000 by $100,000. That is a 6% return on investment. So the question becomes, sometimes when people see that number, it's like, oh, wow, like I'm making 6% on my money. Obviously, that's not counting appreciation, principal pay down, or any of the other factors, but they're able to be like, well, for 5%, I could have it in a CD, or for 4%, I could have it in a CD and not have to deal with any tenants, toilets, or any of the risk associated with it. So a lot of the times when you help them calculate the return on equity, it actually helps them make a decision whether it makes more sense to keep it as a rental or it makes more sense to sell it. At times when we calculate this for them, they're earning a 2% return on equity or a 3% return on equity. Once they see that, they're like, oh, am I able to get a better return? The return on equity calculation is actually good too for somebody selling and buying. Like I had a client that had a condo that they were thinking about keeping as a rental. And what they told me is well, look, most people always say that owning rentals is a good thing. And I told them, you're right. In most cases, most people do say that. And I got into the numbers. I said, okay, how much could you rent it out for? How much is your payment, taxes, and insurance for? How much equity do you have? I did the calculation. I said, look, you're really earning about 3% on your money. And I said, what if there was a way where we can take this 3% and buy a different property and instead of a 3% earn you like a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or a 8 or a 10% on your money? And he's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, look, I'm like, if you sold this condo, got rid of the HOA, and you bought a single family residence, you can put half of it into the down payment and the other half into building an ADU. And we go into what it would cost them out of pocket to build the ADU. So what we came up with was that with the same capital, the same equity that he had tied up in the condo, he could buy a single family residence and build an ADU. And instead of earning $300 a month, he could be earning $2,000 a month with the same equity. So a lot of times when you're dealing with people that are considering renting or selling, by you understanding the return on equity, you're able to help people kind of like go through the information and think about it from an investment perspective. And in some cases, some people would not invest their money at 2%. So if they wouldn't invest it at 2%, why would they have that much equity tied up in that property that's earning them 2% return on equity? Does that make sense? So this is the next level. Does that make sense? So like the very basic level is, hey, what if we can do this at the same time? The more advanced level, meaning like you're providing massive value, is learning how to do these sorts of calculations and do these sorts of analysis for people to be able to get them see, and then being okay with whatever the outcome is. Like if they decide to rent it, great, not a problem. You know, if they decide to sell it, I'm okay with it as well too. But a lot of times when you're able to help people dive into some of this stuff, it helps them make better educated decisions.
Is this math done just like on the fly, or is there a calculator for this?
No, it's just a napkin, a napkin, manila folder type of math. And I'll tell them, I'm like, look, this is not exact, meaning like we're not taking into account appreciation and we're not taking into account principal pay down, but we're also not taking into account if the tenant stops paying. This is just like a very simple calculation. A lot of it's going to have to do with their comfort level and what their stigma about the rental market is. Like some people are like, well, I don't really have a better place to put my money. Great. That might be the best option for them. Some people might be like, no, look, I don't want to rent a property out in California. Or, hey, look, I've got a different place I can put this equity in. Or, hey, I'd rather have it in a CD. I've got this guy that's like, look, I'd rather have it in an ETF versus having to worry about like managing property. As people get older, they get less risk adverse, meaning they want to get less risky with their investment. And a lot of times they want to hedge and simplify. So a lot of times you'll notice that as people get older, they'll choose to cash out versus renting it. A lot of times when people are younger, or in some cases, they may choose to take a little bit more risk. Is this helpful?
Yes.
Awesome.
Helpful.
Hi, how are you? My name is Natalia. Hi, Jose, and everyone. Hi. I have a situation I would like to role play with. I was recommended by Chris Perez. I'm
awesome.
with Real Estate Craft, and I'm very excited to be on this call. I have a listing that's for a trust, and we've been on the market for two and a half months, and we finally received an offer. It's the only offer we received, and the buyer and the buyer's agent, I believe that they know this. With that, we've been negotiating, and we received a cash offer of 2.5 at one point, and we denied it by error. The sellers did not accept that offer, and time passed, so they resubmitted another offer, that same buyer, at 2.3. So now 2.35, I'm sorry. And we're in the inspection period at the moment. And now they basically want to lower the price even more now to 2.3 based on some minor inspection findings and just due to the market conditions. That's what they're saying. And I would like to do some role playing to know how to negotiate.
What are they in escrow at?
Right now we're at 235.
And they're asking for 500, correct?
No, they're asking for 50.
Okay. And then tell me the motivation. What's the motivation for the trust? Like, why are they selling the property?
They are selling the property simply because the sellers, obviously they're deceased, and they just want to get it off the market as soon as possible.
And who's the trustee? Is it a bank or is it like a personal representative?
It is Raymond. It's an attorney and two attorneys.
And where's the money?
Company and
where's the money going when they sell?
The majority is going to charity, and then a small portion is going to the children.
Got it. And then, obviously there's some sort of documentation that states that. And is there an account right now that's paying for the monthly maintenance of the property?
Yes.
Do you know roughly how much it's costing per month to carry that property? Maintenance, taxes, insurance, debt service, like the whole thing?
That I do not know.
Okay, so is there still a mortgage on it?
No, there is not.
Okay, so, and a property of that size, I'm imagining that the insurance in Florida is probably, I don't know, $15,000, $20,000 a year, something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then the taxes are, because, I mean, it's in a trust, so they didn't get the step up yet, but the taxes are probably, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 a year, something like that?
I believe so.
And is there monthly maintenance? Like, I'm sure they have to keep the electricity on, they have the air conditioning on, they have water, they have all that stuff. Are they keeping up the grounds? Is somebody cutting the grass?
They are.
Okay, so let's say it's costing.
Yes, they're cutting the grass and maintaining all of them.
Got it. So I'd like just kind of roughly, just a rough estimate. It's probably costing between $500 to $1,000 a month just to maintain the property. Does it have a pool?
Has no pool.
Okay.
No pool.
But it's probably costing at least $500 a month just to keep it going, and plus the $3,000. So let's say it's costing $3,000 a month. Would you say that's a safe estimate?
Yes.
Okay. So the vast majority of the money is going to charities, and a small portion of the funds are going to the family. And the only person that's the personal representative is the financial advisor from Raymond James. There's nobody else involved. Is there any other decision makers involved?
No, just the Raymond James and the co-trustee, which is an attorney, the real estate attorney.
And then I'm curious, when that initial offer came in, what was their reasoning or rationale behind saying no?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I don't think they said no yet.
Yeah, when the 2.5 came in initially, what was their reasoning or rationale or logic behind saying no?
Because we listed quite high. We listed back in December. We put the price. I did the comps and I ran the numbers, and we listed high.
Based on whose recommendation? So, like, in other words, you recommended to them, the marketplace was showing them probably more like 2.3, and they were like, no, and we want to list it much higher.
No, I actually recommend. I was aspirational on the price. I feel like I made a mistake.
What caused you to be aspirational? Was it you wanted to say yes, or was it that you perhaps looked at the information and just wasn't clear, or what was the reasoning behind that?
I ran the numbers, and it was in the 3 million range, and I figured I gave them a range between 3.1 at the low end and 3.5 in the high end.
Oh wow! So you were like way off.
Yes. This was back in December, and then come January, we went live on the market at 3.1, and quickly, once we passed the 30-day period, I told them that I recommended a price reduction, and we went down to 2.8.
Still too high.
Still too high. Yes.
So I guess I'm curious, like, how was it so, because that's a meaningful amount off. Like, and my intention in asking is not accusational. It's more like I'm curious, like, how is it that much off? Was it the comps were all over the place? Was there something to support the 3.1? Was the 3.1 to 3.5 like just newer? Like, what was it?
Basically, I ran the comps, and I based it off of the size of the lot, right? The size of the lot. There was one comp that closed, that was the most recent, that closed at 3 million. And it was just the land in the same street, which is Lagos, which is a very prestigious street in Miami Beach. Sure. They had closed not too far from when we listed, and I based it off of that comp and a few others, which was how I did my analysis.
And how old is the house?
The house is from 1952.
Okay, so in other words, like you thought to yourself, oh, well, the house has got to be worth something, when in fact somebody has to demolish the house with a high degree of probability. So instead of going back, we went we went in the opposite direction. Okay, and then the offer came in at 2.5. So the expectation was they were going to get way more, so they were resistant to the 2.5. And then when the people came back at 2.35, was there any hesitation or resistance, or were they like, okay?
When they came back, there was resistance. Again, there was another set of resistance, because they said that they originally offered 2.5. Now they want 2.35. They can still do the 2.5.
Yeah. Okay. And then how did they come around? Like, what caused them to come around?
I came around because I provided, the market data showing that we're competing against 20 other active listings within that area in that price point. And, I kind of presented the data to them to let them make the decision, and I was able to get them at 235.
Okay, and now they're coming back and asking for something more. Okay, so now I'm curious, have you at all during this whole process said to them, hey guys, you know, I want to be clear, when we originally looked at this data and information, you know, I made the kind of assessment or the assumption that because there was a structure on the property, that we could get more than what that lot. And what the marketplace is showing us is, in fact, with a very high degree of probability, somebody's going to demolish that lot in order to build the house that they want. So, you know, we were just off initially, which I understand could end up, you know, affecting expectations and therefore affecting our responses to offers as they come in.
Yes.
Okay. And how did they respond?
Mention something along. They were in agreement. They understood, and which is why they agreed to the 235. But they said that was their final number, that they weren't going forward.
So what I would kind of go back, and I'm certainly open to Jose's feedback as well. What I would go back to them and say is something like, hey, you know, what I'm aware of is they did, you know, it is written on an as-is contract. They do have the right to do an inspection, and they still may ask for something. Now, as you guys know, I don't need to tell you, because you're all professionals, that if they ask for something, we have options at our disposal. The first option is we could just say, okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that we just do that, right? The second option is we can flat out say no, tell them to pound sand and go away. Now, there's two things I don't know if you guys decide to make that decision. And if you did, by the way, I'll support you 100%. We can go ahead and put it back on the market. If you do make that decision, though, there's two things that I don't know with a very high degree of certainty. The first one is how long it would take to get another offer. You know, we've been on the market now for X amount of time. We've only received one offer. So I don't know if it'll take another 30 to 60 days. I don't know if it takes 90 to 120 days. And what I'm aware of is every month that goes by, based on my rough kind of calculations, it's costing about $2,500 to $3,000 a month just to hold on to the property, which again is, you know, taking money out of beneficiaries and away from, you know, charities. The second thing I don't know with a high degree of certainty is if and when we did receive another offer, if it would be any better. You know, I don't know that. Right. And my professional experience is as time goes by, I mean, you tell me, if you were shopping for a property, one of the first things that these online platforms show you, and they prominently display it, is days on market. Why do you think they display that so prominently, Noelle?
Yeah, to show why that something's that it's not selling. So they have to know that it's negotiable. Yeah,
because as humans, we have a perceived value that's tied to time. And as time goes by, does that perceived value stay the same or does it go down?
It goes down.
That's exactly right. So my professional experience is as time progresses and it's been on the market longer, that if we do decide to say no and send them away, that with a high degree of probability, those offers, you know, would start to drift downward. Now, that's not me trying to engender fear. It's just an accurate assessment of reality. Now, that leaves us with the third option. And the third option is that we could counter. You know, my suggestion always is that if we do decide to counter, we make it a very reasonable one that they would strongly consider, if not accept, right? Reason being is because we don't know how long it would take to get another offer, and if when we did, if it would be any better. And then be quiet. And then what they'll probably say to you, if you do this right and structure it right and demonstrate that you're not attached to the outcome, they'll be like, well, what do you think? Well, I appreciate you asking. And, you know, I take the responsibility very seriously, which is to protect the value of your property and help not only the beneficiaries, but the charities get the most amount we possibly can. And in this instance, what would be the most reasonable is to split the difference. They're asking for 50, we give them 25, which is essentially, I don't know, like, you know, carrying cost over time, which we split it right down the middle. We get, they feel like they get a little bit more value. You guys, you know, we get the charities and the beneficiaries a little bit more money. And then the next, I don't know, 30 days, we're done and complete. Now at that, if we do decide to counter, you guys and the charities and the beneficiaries would net X amount from the sale. Would that allow you to make this transaction happen? Not is that enough, because it's never enough.
Okay.
Would that allow you to make this transaction happen and then shut up and be quiet?
Yeah.
So that's procedurally how I would walk through it. Is A, whatever you guys decide, I'll support you 100%. It is written on an as-is contract, so they do have the right to do an inspection, and they still may ask for something. Now, if they do, we have 3 options at our disposal. This is a gentle reminder. I'm pretty sure you're aware of those 3 options, but I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. The first option is we can accept the counter and just say, okay, I am not suggesting that we do that. Now, what that does is that demonstrates whose side am I on?
Yeah.
I'm aligning myself with them. Yeah.
Right.
Second option is we just say no. We tell them to pound sand. And if we do that, there's two things I don't know with a high degree of certainty. Number one, how long it would take to get another offer. It took us X amount of time to get this. So it could take X amount of time again or longer. And then number two, if and when we did receive another offer, if it would be any better. Like, I don't know that. And again, you can go into days on market and how your professional experience as time progresses, you see offers drift downward because of that, because there's a perceived value to time. And then the third option is that we could counter. My suggestion always is that if remember, if creates possibility. So I'm not saying we're going to do it, but if we did decide to counter, is that we make it a very reasonable one that they would strongly consider, if not accept. Again, being we don't have anybody else pounding down the door. We're in a marketplace as, we have 7% interest rates, and the amount of people walking around who can afford a property like this is pretty small.
Yeah.
And then be quiet. And they're like, well, what do you think would be reasonable? It's like, well, I appreciate you asking. I take that responsibility very seriously, which is to protect the value of the property for the beneficiaries and the charities and the trust. In this instance, what would be the most reasonable is to split the difference. We get the beneficiaries a little bit more money. They feel like they're getting a little bit more value. And then in the next however many days, we could be done and complete. We don't have to worry about carrying costs moving forward. And we don't have to worry about, market pressure or downward pressure or market gyrations or the economy or things of that nature. So based on what you guys are looking to accomplish and why and the time frame you'd like to make this happen in, what do you think we should do? And then be quiet. Because our tendency is to tell. I'm not suggesting you're doing this, but I just know our tendency. Our tendency is to tell. And when you tell, you get resistance. I used to be deathly afraid of asking, what do you think we should do? Because it's like, oh, why would you ever ask anybody that? But you want them to self-discover. And then they'll probably say something like, well, I guess I guess splitting the difference is, do you have anybody else? No, we don't have anybody else that's sniffing around. Nobody's come and looked at it twice. Nobody else has made another offer. I showed you out of the 20 properties that were on the market for sale in this price point, there's been only X amount of sales in the last 30 days.
Right.
So what that means is only 15, 20% of the inventory selling every month.
Yep.
So in light of that data, in light of our experience up until this point, in light of the fact that the cost of money's doubled in the last 2 years, and even though everybody keeps saying interest rates are going to come down, they're still around 7%. What do you think we should do?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Here's what I would add to that as well, too. So our process, whenever we receive a request for repairs, before we reach out to the seller, we always reach out to the buyer's agent first. And the reason we reach out to the buyer's agent first, it's kind of to feel them out and to basically see where they stand, and also to evaluate the request for repairs. Is this an actual request for repairs, or are they just being greedy, trying to get more additional money? Meaning, are these actual concerns that they actually have? So we'll reach out to them, and then we'll set expectations really low as well too. So prior to us connecting with the seller, we'll reach out to the other party. So here's what I would say about any negotiation. Even when you're accepting an offer or getting an offer on a listing, our first process is always to reach out to the other side before we reach out to the seller, because we want to set different expectations, and we also want to gauge that way we can make the right recommendations to our client. So that call may look like this. Hey, blank, I received the request for repairs. You came up with a $50,000 credit. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How did you guys arrive at that number? And then be like, look, I actually have a problem. Prior to going into escrow, the seller actually shared with me that they were not doing any repairs on the property and that they were not going to offer any credit. So they basically let me know that the 2.350 is actually their bottom line. I don't know if you've ever dealt with this, but obviously they were originally listed at 3.1. They came down to 2.8, and now they're in escrow at 2.3. They feel like they're giving it away. So I'm pretty confident that they're going to come back and just flat out reject the request for repairs, just to kind of let you know. What they've told me is that they're potentially going to be putting it back on the market at $2,350,000. and they believe that at 2,350,000, that because they're currently listed at 2.8, that at 2,350,000 it's going to be the hottest thing on the market. Additionally, we have had some phone calls of people that found out that we're in escrow at 2,350,000, and they're basically telling us, wow, if something changes, keep us in mind, keep us in mind if something changes. So my question to you is this going to be a deal breaker for you guys, or are you guys going to basically move forward? If my client rejects it, are you guys going to move forward or cancel? And all I'm doing is I'm kind of feeling them out and kind of seeing how they're gonna how they respond. And you might get a couple of different responses. You might get a response from the agent saying, yeah, I know, I told my client that they're already getting a good deal, and that even if they come back with nothing, my client would accept. Or I may get okay, if you reject it, we're walking. And that piece of information is very vital when you're going back to the other side, because now you know kind of where they stand, and now you can make better recommendations to the other side. And now you could be like, hey, look, if you do reject this counteroffer, I've already talked to the agent. I'm pretty confident that they're going to walk on it. So I'm basically trying to call out to see if it's a bluff or if it's a real thing, or to see if it's a deal breaker or not a deal breaker, basically. The other thing that we do is whenever we receive a request, and this is just part of our process. So first thing, we talk to the other agent. In some cases, or step one, before we talk to the other agent, if we had any other offers, we reach out to the other offers to see if any of them still have any interest on the property. Or if there's any inquiries that have come after the fact that we went pending, or anybody that's called the office to see if they missed out, I'll reach out to them and say, hey, look, we're in escrow at this price. We just received the request for repairs. This is what they provided. Are your clients still interested in? So what I'm doing is I'm feeling out my leverage position. Negotiations is all about leverage. And knowing where you stand lets you know how much leverage you have in that negotiation. If I have a lot of, meaning let's say I make that phone call to other agents and 3 people are like, dude, if you guys fall out of escrow, I'm in 100%. What does that do to my leverage? Does that decrease it or increase it?
Increase.
It increases it tremendously, right? So that's what I'm doing. I'm basically trying to gauge out my leverage. The other thing that I'm doing is, let's say nobody else is interested. I'm feeling out the other people, and then I may ask questions like, hey, look, remind me again, what was the goal for your client with this property? What were they looking to do? Okay, and see if there's some sort of emotional connection with the property, meaning also how far along they are in the process. Let's say that they already have loan docs. How probable is it, if they've already got loan docs, that they're going to walk away? The probabilities are a lot less. So the first step in any negotiation is assessing the situation and trying to figure out, okay, where do we stand and how much leverage do we have?
Yeah, the other thing that popped up as he said that, because you'll notice I asked a bunch of questions on the sell side, and now what Jose's doing is he's filling that in with asking a bunch of questions on the buy side.
The buy side, yeah.
And
that's the part that I was
the other thing that came up for me as he was speaking is, where are we contractually? So I've had people come back and be like, we're not going to do anything. And I'm like, dude, I know you're out of your inspection period. I know it. So then I'm like, yeah, listen, you're completely within your right to do so. Just so you know, if you did decide to make that decision, I'm not suggesting that this will be the case. This is not a threat. It's just informing you that if you did decide to make that decision, I would definitely consult with a real estate attorney, because as I can see it, you're outside of the inspection period and your $25,000 deposit would be in jeopardy. So I just want you to be clear on that, and then just be quiet. You know what I'm saying? So there's 3 pieces to the puzzle, and Jose loves to talk about puzzles. The first piece of the puzzle is what's going on the sell side. I need to know all the motivation. I need to know the dynamics. I need to know the situation, who are the beneficiaries, who's getting the money, all that. So I'm clear. Then I need to know, hey, what's going on the buy side? Let me ask a bunch of questions to the buyer's agent, see where they're at. Hey, our job is to put this together. It's not to keep it apart. Because what oftentimes happens too is agents have Superman syndrome, where they think that they need to be the savior and hop in, and they actually get in the way of a transaction instead of putting it together. Yeah. So I will just point out to them, sometimes politely, when they're being aggressive with me. I'll be like, hey, I appreciate that. Just so you know, just as a gentle reminder, neither me or you are purchasing the property. Our job is to put this deal together. It's not to keep it apart. So I guess my question to you is if, and I don't know, I have to speak to them first, if they say no, Like, do you think you guys are going to walk, or do you think there's any room? Like, I understand they're asking for the 50. Do they need it in order to facilitate the transaction, or is it just they want it? And if I could get my buyer to counter, like, do you think that they'd be open to that? You know what I mean? So now we're feeling out that side. And then the third piece that I need to get clarity on is the actual instrument, the purchase and sales agreement, and where are we contractually?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with all that. So I think it's mainly just assessing the situation, seeing where you stand contractually, seeing where they stand in the transaction, like any cues that you can pick up on, like hey, look, like they're like they already started buying furniture or anything like that. All of that increases your leverage position in the negotiations. And then I'll feel them out and just set really low expectations. Like, hey, look, I'm lucky if I'm able to even get $500 from them. And just, I'm not saying that that's what the seller is going to say. I'm basically just feeling them out to see where we stand on that negotiation. Then after I collect that information, then I can make the proper recommendation to the seller.
Yeah.
Before that, I don't believe that you can make a proper recommendation to the seller without feeling out the other side. After that, you're able to be like, okay, like this. And in some cases, you may have like a agent to agent conversation with the other agent. Be like, look, I'm lucky if I'm able to get you $500. Do you think that would work? Be like, no, but here's the thing. If you come back with like 8,000, I think we can make that work. And now you're like, bingo. Basically. And then I'll add like a little bit of fear of loss as well too. Like, so are you listed at 2.8 right now?
Right now, yes.
Okay. So if you're listed, what would happen if you listed the property at 2.3?
I would probably get nonstop calls on it.
Yeah, you probably get multiple offers on it, right? So I would probably add that little fear doubt, be like, look, like to be quite honest, this is what the seller has told me. The seller has told me, look, we're listed at 2.8. We're thinking about dropping the price to 2,350,000 if this doesn't go through. And they believe that if they drop the price to 2,350,000, that they're going to get multiple offers and that they're going to get nonstop calls on the property. And I hate to say to you, but I kind of tend to agree with them that at that price, they're going to do it. So just so you know, it's very likely that they're going to reject it completely. And I just want to know, like, hey, look, is this a deal breaker? That way we can move on and like not attached to the outcome. And all I'm doing is feeling them out. And if I notice them retracting, like, no, like, please don't cancel, like, don't cancel on us that, I'm like, okay, my leverage position just went up like crazy. So it's almost like playing poker, a little bit of poker.
Yeah, and then what I would do is I would also like big up their ego a little bit. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'll go back and talk to them. I'll be like, you know what, Jose? If anybody can do it, you can.
You can do it, yeah.
And they'll be like, okay, man, let me go see if I can do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he did just quickly. He did mention that they're under contract. I think I don't know, using it as a sales tactic with me, but that they're under contract with another property, and that if this doesn't pan out at 2.3, then the other option is a more viable option.
Yeah, which again, I appreciate that. I guess I'm curious because there's a reason why this one's in the first position. Like, do they like this
location? Location.
I see, and I guess I'm wondering at this kind of for your client. I have to imagine that they value the location, hence the reason why we're having this conversation. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So when he tells me that, I'm just gonna like dismantle it. I'm gonna take the teeth out of it. Like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, they clearly have a preference, and they would like this one. And just like anything else in life, like you typically get what you pay for. So if they want to get the best location, then they probably need to pay a little bit more money for it. So, good look, we're here not to keep it apart. We're here to put it together. And my intention is to do everything I possibly can to make that happen. And, we're at a place now where I'm sure you can respect that. I'm sure you've had a seller who has said to you after you came down on price and somebody came back asking for more, that they're not moving a penny more. Like, have you ever had that happen? And they'll be like, yeah. It's like, exactly. So, if your buyer was in that situation, they'd probably be doing the same thing. I do believe we can come to a meeting of the minds as long as we stay, kind of dialed in. And, I know you're asking for 50, and I'm pretty confident. And again, I'm not putting any words in their mouth. I just know based on what they've shared with me, the probability they're going to say okay to that is almost zero. Now, I do think that I may be able to get them to counter it in some way. So my question to you is if they do counter, is that something that your buyers would be open to?
Right.
And then here's the thing. Sometimes like let's say I'm in negotiations on an offer that I received. They're like, oh yeah, the buyer's. So you got to remember, the buyer's agent is to increase their leverage position. So what he just did to you is he tried to instill fear in you.
Yeah,
that's what he tried to do.
He also tried to take away status from you, and I'm just taking it right back.
Yeah, he tried to instill fear in you, meaning that like, hey, by the way, we're in escrow on another property. So now you're like, oh my God, if we don't come down to 2-3, we're gonna lose this deal and we're gonna fall out of escrow, blah, 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 blah. So you can almost do the same thing back in a way where it's like kind of like to really call out the bluff. So in some cases where agents are like, look, they're considering other offers, like I'll be in a negotiation to go into escrow and be like, oh look, they actually are considering another offer, and I'll be like, okay, great. And just out of curiosity, if they both get accepted, which one do they like better? And then they'll be like, well, they like yours better. I'll be like, well, why do they like ours better? They'll be like, well, they like it because their mom lives around the block or this or that. I'd be like, okay, great. And then I may ask like an additional question, be like, hey, like what price are you guys getting that other one at? So I think just like whenever you're negotiating with somebody, understanding the other side and even doing a couple of bluffs here, or not bluffs, but like a couple of like tests with them, it'll help you understand where you stand in the negotiation. And it may turn out that if they don't get the $50,000, that they are willing to walk. And if let's say at 2-3 you wouldn't get like any other offers, then it might be in the seller's best interest to go get that. But like I've had requests that are like, yeah, they're like $100,000 requests and we're in escrow at 650, and I'm like, dude, come on, dude, if I put it at 550, I'm gonna be the most popular person in town. Like this thing is gonna like be the best thing since cake and ice cream. Like I'm gonna get blown up, and I know that because of other properties. So now I know where I stand in the negotiation, basically.
Yeah. So, and what he's saying is exactly right. It's like they're trying to they're trying to set the frame, and you can like reset it immediately. Like, hey, yeah, like I appreciate where you're coming from. At the same time, and I think you know this, I don't need to tell you because I know you do a lot of business too. Flattery always works, by the way.
If we price it at 2.3,
if we make an adjustment to 2.3, I mean, we're gonna have multiple offers on the table.
You know that already.
Yeah,
I don't have to tell you that.
Yeah,
I don't have to tell you that 2.3.
Yeah, I don't have to tell you that because you do a lot of business. You know what I'm saying? So, what I'm aware of is, it really seems as though you guys just have to make an executive decision on how valuable the location is. And what I'm aware of is the difference between what you guys are asking and what we may settle on. I know it's money. What I'm also aware of, it's not an amount of money that's going to substantially change the course of anybody's life one way or the other. What would have more of an impact is for your buyer to get the actual location that they want. And that'll probably lead to more referrals down the line and things of that nature. So, I guess my question is if we can come to an agreement, not on the 50, because they're not going to say yes to that, but they will counter. If we can come to an agreement, you think we'll be able to put it together? And like, I don't know, like maybe I can get them come down to 20. And you're like, okay. Well, if anybody can do it, you can. So may I make a suggestion? Like, yeah, we'll go ask them. And once we get like certainty from them, then you can hand the baton off to me. I'll go have a conversation with them, do my best to say, okay. So hopefully the next time we meet each other, we put a deal together and we created a win-win proposition for all parties. How does that sound?
And now the way I want you to think about a negotiation, whenever you see a negotiation, it's not emotional. It's just basically, okay, there's a gap and I've got to bridge that gap.
Yes.
Right? So right now there's a $50,000 gap from keeping that deal together. How can I bridge that gap? How much is the buyer willing to come up? How much is the seller willing to come up?
Exactly. Yeah.
Sometimes you're able to bridge that gap. That's the entire thing. We have a gap, non-emotionally. Like obviously I have certain sales things that I do to try to like set low expectations with them. That way, if I set low expectations, I may bridge that gap. That way the seller doesn't have to come out that much.
Yeah. And I'm also setting expectations when the offer comes in. So like, it's like, yeah, we got some great news. We got an offer came in and we go over it. I'm like, yeah, it's on an as-is contract. And just to be clear, that means they have the right to do an inspection and they still may ask us for something. Because almost everybody, when they see as is, they're like, oh, I'm not doing nothing. So I'm managing that expectation up front. Like, be prepared for them to ask. Now, if they do ask, we have 3 options. We'll go over them together. Ultimately, you're the boss. You make the decision that you feel is best. I just wanted you to be clear on where we're at. And then when they do the inspection, like, hey, just so you know, the inspection was done. And as I mentioned, It is as an as-is contract. They have the right to do the inspection, and they still may ask us for something, even though we've already come to an agreement in terms of the purchase and sales agreement and the price of the home. Now, if they do, we have a couple options, okay? And we'll review them together as a team, and we can decide what makes the most sense for the beneficiaries and the family. I just wanted you to be, prepared for that, because I think it's the jarringness. And it's also interesting too, guys. I want everybody on this call to recognize something. We think that we're thinking beings that feel. We're actually feeling beings that think. You're dealing with an attorney and a financial advisor, and they're acting like a normal seller.
Right.
So despite the fact that they're they're professionals, quote unquote, they're still falling into the thinking traps that everybody else does. So it's a blend between like what Jose's saying, filling the gap. Part of it is logical, but the other part is emotional. Mm-hmm. So there's two components. You know what I'm saying? And I what also came up for me, Jose, when I heard you say that, and they're like, yeah, we're gonna just like start, like we may walk away. I'm like, I get it. And you're certainly within your prerogative and right contractually to do that based on the fact that you're still in the inspection period. I guess what I'm aware of is like, do you really want to start showing properties again?
Yeah.
And they'll be like, wow.
No.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're just immediately, as they try to like kind of, because what Jose, like notice, when they say to you, oh, we're looking at other stuff, they're trying to trigger an emotion.
Yeah.
Which is fear.
Right.
So instead, I'm going to come right back at him with an emotion. And notice me and Jose, we remain like really, okay, yeah, that's cool. But most agents, I'm not suggesting this is true for you, but just in general, the average agent does between 4 to 15 transactions a year. So it's a huge portion of their income. So because of that, it's very difficult for them to remain emotionally unattached.
Yeah. It's funny because I received an offer yesterday. It was a lot. It's at 2.7 and I'm listed at 3.2. And the agent was the buyer, and she was trying to be like, oh, look, it's never going to appraise for this, or like trying to basically like say it's never going to appraise this. And I'm like, look, we don't know that, but the reality is we're never going to get there unless we come in with an offer that basically like is up to the seller's expectations. I'm like, why don't we like right now, let's focus on step 1 and then we'll focus on step 2, And the reality is, like, I've had properties that I don't think that they're going to appraise and they appraise. And then I've had properties that I think they're going to appraise and then they don't appraise. So it's very subjective. So a lot of this is just going to have to do with like, understanding leverage, understanding where you stand, feeling out the other side, and then obviously coming back to the seller with recommendations. And then even on the other side, like on the buyer side, when you go into escrow, like let's say you go into escrow substantially below the asking price, like you did right here, you may set expectations with them as well too. Be like, hey, look, just so you know, like the seller is okay with the 2.3, but they have expressed to me that if you ask for anything, I mean anything, they've already expressed to me that they're just going to put it back on the market at that point.
I would do the same thing. Like when we would finally get to an agreement, I'm like, look, I just want you to know. I know you're. So
now you're setting low expectations.
But I want you to be very, very clear, because it's not uncommon that for investors, once they, come to a meeting of the minds, they come back and ask for more money. They're not doing anything. I just need you to know. So if that is the strategy or the exit strategy, we can save everybody time right now, because the moment that you send that over to us, they will send you a release and cancellation. We'll put it back on the market and sell it to somebody else.
Yeah. Was this conversation helpful for you?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
I really appreciate both of your time and the nuggets you guys have presented today. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Anybody got something really quick?
I have something that's still referencing this one, just for my own curiosity. The agent, she shared with me the email that he sent her, and I just posted it on the chat if you want to see it. He mentions, the market conditions are different, they're worse, and there's these repairs, potential remediation.
It's a bullshit request.
To me, it sounds like bullshit. The market hasn't changed in 2 weeks. It's relatively the same. It's not great, but it's the same. And potential.
There's no concrete. It's just they want
more money. Yeah,
they want more money. That's it.
Yeah, right. which is okay. Which,
by the way, too, just so everybody knows, I want all you guys to be clear. You guys do the exact same thing in your life.
100%.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to be judgmental towards others if you see something in yourself. So like, you know, you guys do it all the time. You do it with your airline tickets. You do it with restaurants. You do it with much less things that are $2.3 million. So like with an understanding, like, okay, I get it. This is like a Hail Mary. You're just trying. That's what I see when I see that email.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I said, I would sprinkle that doubt bomb with them, you know?
Yeah, I would
like,
do the same. I would hit him back with the same
bomb.
thing. Like, yeah, dude, I appreciate that. What I'm also aware of is, you know, in speaking to the seller, if for some reason we don't come to a meeting of the minds, you know, they're talking about putting it back on the market at like 2.3. And if we do that, we'll get multiple offers and we'll sell it again to somebody else. So, you know, I think ultimately you guys just have to make a decision as to how valuable this location is for you. I'm not saying that there's not any more money on the table, because maybe we might be able to have a conversation. You know, at the same time, what I'm aware of is there's already been a meaningful adjustment made. And now we're coming back to the well for more. And that just begins to feel disingenuous. And then what ends up happening is they'll get mad, and over a relatively small amount of money, we won't be able to get your buyer what you want. So, you know, let me ask you a question. If we could come back and, you know, like they're not going to do the 50, if we can come back with something, do you think your buyer would be okay? And just be quiet. Because I also think too, you have to remember too, there's like multiple egos at play. Mm-hmm. And agents, independent of the actual fact that they just need a 75 on a test, have $1,000 and not be a felon, have enormous egos. Like magnanimous for no reason. You know what I'm saying? And then you have the ego of the buyer, somebody who spends $2.3 million, they're used to being right and getting what they want. And then you have the egos of the financial officers who are like, I'm not going to be taking advantage. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you're just managing all of that.
And then just so you know, if I was on the receiving end and I was like in escrow at $2,350,000 and somebody said to me like, hey, look, we're just going to drop the price at $2,350,000 and I feel like I'm getting a good deal, I'm just going to be like, okay, like, let's move forward.
Yeah, like I threw the Hail Mary.
Let's proceed. I was trying to get it, but I wasn't able to get it, you know? Right. And I would just proceed. That's if I feel like I'm getting a good deal on the property, because like in some cases people just want to try, you know, and I've been in situations where I'm buying a property and I'm like, I think I can get an extra 25,000. Let me try. And then they come back and like, no, we're putting it back on the market. And I'm almost like, no, please don't. Like, I'm already getting a good deal. Let me just close on it. You know?
It's like when people come to me and they're like, well, if I pay you in full, can I get a discount? And I'm like, no. Like, I don't need the money. So like, no. And they're like, okay, let's go. Like, they just are asking, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's fine. You don't have to get like mad about it. They just asked.
Yeah, we did do an appraisal and it came back at 2,535. So
there you go, bro.
Yeah.
But see, that would be part of the doubt bombs that I would be adding to the other agent. But that I don't think that adds as much fear as me putting it back on the market at $2,350,000. I think that's like the ultimate fear that it adds, because I think that if you dropped it to $2,350,000, you'd actually go into multiple offers. And appraisal is very subjective. So properties sell at different prices than what they appraise for all the time. So I wouldn't really focus too much on that if I'm going to add a fear bomb. If I'm going to add a fear bomb, is like, hey, look, like we've had other phone calls. We've told them what we're in escrow at. And they're just like, look, dude, like this, not only that, but the seller have expressed to me that if for whatever reason you guys aren't able to reach an agreement, that they're okay with putting it on the market at $2,350,000. What they believe is that if they put it on at $2,350,000, that they would potentially get multiple offers in. And I kind of tend to agree with them. So let me know what you want to do, if you want to cancel or if you want to move forward. And then I'm just feeling them out and then like, okay, like we're going to cancel, you know? But it's kind of the same thing. Like as a buyer's agent, if you're ever on a buyer deal, it's almost like, okay, like how can I increase my leverage position, you know? Right. Like sometimes throwing out the word cancellation, like, hey, look, my clients are going to cancel, that'll panic the listing side, you know, and that'll increase your position on the negotiations and potentially allow you to negotiate a better deal. It was funny. Grant Cardone did this one time and I got this from him, and this is the last thing I'll share. He's like, he'll basically negotiate these large apartment complexes and he'll tell them like, hey, look, part of it is I'm not going to retrade you. Meaning I'm not going to come back to you and ask you for a price reduction. That's a reason to come back. But at times he has to go back and ask for a retrade. So the way that he'll do it is he'll say, hey, look, I promised you I wasn't going to retrade you, so I'm not going to do that. But the problem is the deal doesn't make any sense. So I'm just going to have to cancel the deal. And as soon as he said, I'm going to have to cancel the deal, the other side's like, oh my God, like, no. Like, what do we got to do to basically keep it together? Like, what if we offered you a credit, blah, blah, blah. And then he's able to get the credit that he needs and be able to keep the deal together.
That's so smart, bro. So it's like them retreating, not him.
Yeah. He'll be like, and I did that on a deal one time where I was in escrow. I'm like, hey, look, I'm not going to retrade you. I told you I wouldn't. I'm just going to have to cancel. Same exact thing happened. And then whenever we're involved in buyer deals, that cancellation word is so powerful, like so powerful, especially if you understand the other side situation, the leverage that you have, basically.
Right. Thank you so much.
All right, guys. Hope that this was helpful. Peace out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. Have
Later.
a great
Bye.
day. Bye.